Hi, I'm Kath. Welcome to Veg Patch Kitchen Cookery School, and today I'm going to show you how to make bagels. And actually this is a special request from one of the students that came along to my course on Saturday. So Helen was particularly interested in finding out how to make bagels, and so I'm making a video about bagels. If you'd like to ask me to make a video for you with a particular bread recipe in mind, please do let me know in the comments and I'll do my best. Right, let's get started with making the bagels. Here in this bowl I've got 500 grams of strong white bread flour. I've got 10 grams of salt, 5 grams of Easy Bake, otherwise known as instant or fast action yeast. You could easily just use a whole sachet, which is normally about 7 grams. And you can see I've got a heaped teaspoon, which is about 10 grams of malt extract. And what we're going to do is 500 grams of flour. We're going to add 285 grams of water. Now, normally when I'm making bread dough, I say, don't worry about how much water you add in, feel it by hand. This is an exception to the rule. What we want here is a specific texture to the dough, okay, and it is quite dry, much drier than I would normally make my bread dough. So I'm being exact this time. I'm putting in 285 grams of water to 500 grams of flour. And it's going to make a dry dough, much drier than normal. And I'm just going to have to keep mixing it without splashing in any more water. That's a 57% hydration level. Okay, so I'm going in with my hand like a claw at first. I'm using warm water to get things going today. And I'm just going to keep mixing. So normally at this point, if you've watched my other videos about making a simple white loaf, I would definitely add more water in. However, bagels have a particularly sort of chewy denseness to them. And if I was to add more water, they wouldn't be like the bagels that you recognise. They'd be dinner rolls instead. So you have to keep at this low hydration level. Make a rather stiff dough. So I'm just going to keep persevering, squeezing the dough as I go round, rolling it around the bowl. These bits here on my hand are the wetter bits because those are the first bits in there. So I'm just going to take those off so that they can suck up some of that flour that's underneath. And it always makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable, this, when you're used to making a wetter dough, because you sort of think, oh, is this actually going to work? But don't worry, it's all in the name of making a bagel that's got a good, dense, chewy texture. Okay, can you see how that now has transformed into a dough? No more dry bits. Nowhere near as sticky or as soft as I would make for my simple white loaf recipe. But the important thing is there's no unhydrated bits of flour in here. So I'm just going to continue to do this sort of kneading, mixing in the bowl just for a minute or so more. Then I'll cover it with a proving cloth, and then I will come back and do a round of stretch and fold, cover it again, let it rest for at least 10 minutes between each session of resting, up to an hour depending on what's going on in your day. And I'll probably do 2 rounds of stretch and fold of this once I've done this initial mixing. And then I'll shape them. Then I'll let them prove again. And then I'm going to boil some water in a large pan, add some bicarbonate of soda, and boil the bagels before baking them, which is what makes their gorgeous, chewy texture and their delicious burnished crust. Okay, so that's enough mixing. I'm now going to cover this and just let it rest and then I'll come back and do a round of stretch and fold when I'm ready. It's been about 30 minutes since I mixed this, so you can see it's nice and relaxed now. There's some air bubbles in there. If you can see that, possibly the honeycomb fermentation is starting. That's just oxygen trapped in there, and the yeast is expelling carbon dioxide and filling those spaces in the dough. So it's got a lovely light feel to it now. I'm just going to do a quick round of stretch and fold just to improve the gluten structure. There we go, and that's it. I'm going to let it cover up, let it relax it back down again, and give it another round stretch and fold just like that, and then I'm going to let it ferment and get lovely and airy and full of bubbles, and then we'll shape it. So here's the bagel dough. I've not long just done a stretch and fold of this, so it's not really poofy, but it's risen and it's become quite airy, and then I've stretched and folded it just to deflate it back down again. So we're going to cut it now into 6 pieces. If you would like to weigh it to be precise, you can do, of course. I sort of eyeball it to make reasonably even 6 pieces. Okay, and there's 2 ways of shaping your bagel. I prefer this way of shaping it into a ball and just letting it rest for a few minutes whilst I shape the others. Okay, so just as if I'm shaping a roll. And so whilst those are relaxing back down, I'll show you the other way that you can do it, which is to shape it, roll it out into a long sausage shape. Trying to get it as evenly rolled out as possible. I find this far more complicated, and then the trouble is when you try to join these 2 bits, they tend to fling apart again. So that's one way of shaping a bagel. My preferred method is just to put a hole in the centre of that roll and stretch it out. Just makes it easier. Okay, but you want a really good, nice big gap in there before you place it onto the baking tray, because it will, as it proves, that gap will close. So just make sure you leave plenty, a big hole in the middle. And then on my baking tray, I've got greaseproof paper and semolina. You could just as easily use flour, any flour that you happen to have in the cupboard. When you boil these bagels before baking, they have a tendency to stick. So that's why I use greaseproof paper and flour or semolina to help it to not stick as much as possible, really. You could just as easily use oil if you wanted to. Oil your tray well. Okay, so just making it so it's got a nice big gap in the middle. And there you go, 6 lovely bagels. Now they've got to prove, so I'll leave them for at least half an hour at room temperature if your room's warm, longer if your room's cool like mine is today. So my bagels are nicely proved now and ready to go into the hot water. So this is a large pan of water with a tablespoon of bicarbonate of soda in there. Okay, and then I'm just going to carefully drop the bagels in. turn them over. They only need a couple of seconds on each side, and then fetch them out and pop them back onto the greaseproof paper. My oven is heated up to 220 degrees centigrade. Can you see why I prefer to make the hole in the centre rather than making a sausage and sealing it? That joint tends to come free when it's being boiled like this. That's that done. Now you could egg wash these if you wanted to, so that would just be a beaten egg with a pinch of salt in there, just to break up the proteins. But what I'm actually going to do is dip them into some toppings. So this is a mixture of sunflower and pumpkin seeds. Then I have some black sesame seeds. You could use white sesame seeds, black onion seeds, caraway seeds. The world is your oyster. And the steaming helps the toppings to stick. And then I have some coarse sea salt crystals, just for this one, to add a little bit of a salty edge to it. And they're going to go in the oven at 220 degrees for 15-20 minutes, maybe 25, depending on your oven. Here they are, fresh out of the oven. After 20 to nearly 25 minutes, I like them this sort of golden dark colour, but you could bake them lighter than that. I'm going to pop them onto a cooling rack now to cool completely. But can you see how when they've had oven spring in the oven, I could have actually been more generous with the hole that I made here, because it's completely closed up. The other thing that you can see is the more even round shape of those where the hole was made from the centre to that made from a sausage and then joined up. So entirely up to you which way you prefer, but just make sure that you make the hole really large so that you get that distinctive bagel shape that this one has with the hole in the centre.